When the first mangled body turned up along the riverfront, the local news called it a tragic animal attack. But we residents knew our sleepy town had never seen carnage like this before. As more victims appeared with matching vicious wounds over the next few weeks, dark rumors spread. A rabid bear was picked as the culprit, then an escaped lion. Maybe a rogue wolf pack. But the injuries told a different story. These were no random animal strikes. Deep slash wounds, necks ripped open, innards missing, this was methodical human savagery. Fear rippled through town as gruesome news stories circulated about a mysterious killer supposedly stalking victims on foggy nights. My friends joked about me being the prime target, always walking home late from my diner shift downtown. Better not let the riverfront slasher get you, they'd tease. But I could sense real tension beneath their taunts. The whole town was on edge. Getting home at 2 a.m. on eerily deserted streets became nerve-wracking. Any little sound made my pulse quicken, a stray cat, a car door. I started carrying the biggest chef's knife from work tucked in my jacket, just in case. Late one misty night, I was almost home when prickles of unease crept up my neck. I paused under a flickering streetlight. Too quiet out here. That's when I heard shuffling footsteps and ragged breathing closing in behind me. Fingers tightening on my hidden knife, I spun around, ready to strike. An emaciated figure shambled into the light, glazed eyes, tattered blood-stained clothes, reeking of the grave. I recoiled in shock before realizing it was just old Mitch, the harmless town hobo. He meant no ill will, but my heart still slammed against my ribs. I couldn't go on like this, spooked of every harmless shadow. When I got home, I decided my next shift would be my last. I'd find a new job closer to home. Wait out this reign of terror from the safety of locked doors. If only I had kept that resolution. But my bravado crumbled 2 nights later walking the final stretch home well after midnight. Thick billowing fog had rolled in, reducing visibility to barely a few feet. Halfway down the deserted block, the hairs on my neck stood up. I froze, peering into the soupy mist but seeing nothing besides vague parked cars. When the first street lamp above me suddenly popped and went dark, dread crept up my spine. I rushed forward through the murk, hand clenched on the knife in my pocket. Then, footsteps, moving slowly, deliberately after me. Crunching through the gravel without hurry. Stalking me. I broke into a panicked sprint, weaving between vague parked cars. The footsteps sped up in turn as my pursuer closed the distance. I still couldn't see them, only hear the predator's eager breath. Darting across the street, I had one last block to go. My building's entrance glowed faintly ahead like a beacon. Sneakers pounding pavement, lungs burning, I willed myself to keep it together. Glancing back over my shoulder, I could barely make out a tall stooped shape pursuing through the gloom. Almost there. I flew up the front steps, fumbled violently with my keys, shoulder slamming the door behind me just as fetid fingers grazed my hair. Hyperventilating in the brightly lit lobby, I hugged myself tight. No way I was imagining things, someone, or some asterisk thing asterisk had tracked me with sinister intent. And was still roaming the night-shrouded streets. The next morning, my relief at surviving quickly turned to anger. I had to know who was behind this sadistic stalking. If the police wouldn't take it seriously, I'd find proof myself. That evening at sunset, I slipped out my building's back entrance, armed with only my camera phone. Keeping to the shadows, I stealthily circled the block where I was attacked. Waiting. Around 3 a.m., movement caught my eye. Across the street, a dark figure crept from behind a tree, crouching low. It slunk between pools of light, stopping to scan surroundings before continuing onward. My pulse racing, I followed at a distance, sticking to darkness. The thing moved gracefully, almost animal-like. But its proportions were humanoid, albeit unnaturally tall and thin. It arrived at the front steps of an apartment building and withdrew something long and metallic from inside its coat. I zoomed in as much as possible from my hiding spot and snapped some quick grainy photos. Enough proof for police. Just then, the figure halted, standing upright and turning my direction. I gasped, realizing it was facing right at me, even across the street in the blackness. How? Bony shoulders rising and falling with excited breaths, it crept toward my location with purpose. My nerves lit up in warning. Time to leave. Now. Spinning around, I fled down the alleyway behind me. Heavy rasping breaths pursued me, getting louder no matter how hard I ran. Devilish whispers and giggles surrounded me in the dark. At last I broke onto a main street. Without slowing, I waved down a trucker pulled over at a rest stop. He quickly let me in the cab. Only once safely inside did I dare to look back. No one there. The next day I showed the photos to police, demanding they warn the town. But the figures were too blurry to identify, they said. Nothing but shadows and fog, insufficient for any public alarm. My frustration swelled, but I knew it was futile. Whatever evil had crept into our community kept to the darkness. I'm sure I had escaped being its next victim by a mere fraction. Weeks passed with no new murders. The town began letting its guard down. Maybe the reign of terror was over. I knew better than to believe that. The hunter was simply lying patiently in wait somewhere, sharp senses poised to cut down the next hapless human that crossed its path. So I stay locked up tight at night now, doors bolted, blinds drawn. And I pray that those around me will do the same, at least until whatever sinister force arrived here has had its fill and moved on in search of new hunting grounds. But I still imagine its thin, pale form gliding through the foggy night, seeking fresh prey. A demonic smile below empty eyes as it slashes throats open, fulfilling some unearthly compulsion. Until the day comes that someone else crosses its path instead of me. Maybe we'll never know what malevolence visited our town that year, draining so much innocent blood under the cloak of darkness. But I'll never forget that towering thing pursuing me through the shadows, utterly inhuman. Still gliding the streets after midnight, enjoying the thrill of the hunt. Waiting for the day it can once again feed.